I love the fact that he had Padlet in there. He had has interactive content. He has videos. He's got a thing link. He has audio. The variety of materials caters, as UDL would, to those that are visual, audio, and how anybody learns best. There's multiple ways of learning, and that's one of the really super things I found within his binder.
That was Linda Houle, a longtime LiveBinders curator, who was sharing with me a quick review of the UDL Toolkit binder created by Fred Cochran, who is our featured guest on our very first podcast. I'm Tina Schneider, founder of LiveBinders.com, and welcome to LiveBinders Organized Success podcast channel. If you aren't familiar with us, LiveBinders is a cloud-based application that helps you organize resources into online digital binders. So you're probably wondering, why a podcast? Well, we come across fantastic public binders, and we usually post them on our featured binders page or on our Twitter and Facebook feeds. But the one thing that's missing is giving an opportunity to our curators a chance to share their story behind their binders. So this is an experiment, and ultimately we hope that the binders and the stories we share will inspire you as much as they've inspired us. So this interview was taken back in October of 2019, when social distancing had not yet become a global hashtag and a new way of life. Today, we're all working from home with new challenges to stay connected and keep productive, and I hope that you'll find our podcast even more useful now than ever before. So to begin, Fred Cochran is a coordinator for the Continuous Improvement and Support at San Joaquin County Office of Education, and I am so thankful that Fred took the time out of his busy schedule to join us to talk about his UDL Toolkit binder. Now, for those of you who don't know what UDL stands for, it is Universal Design for Learning. And I found the history of UDL and its adoption to education fascinating, and only learned about it through Fred's binder. In this episode, Barbara Talent, who is our co-founder here at LiveBinders, joins me to welcome Fred as he talks about UDL and even shares with us how practicing a simple shift in his perspective improved his own work. In fact, I walked away with a new appreciation for how I can give better presentations, and that, I think, is the beauty of UDL. Anyone can benefit, whether you are presenting in person, over a video conference call, whether you are in business or as an advisor or even as a student. You'll appreciate how to better engage your audience with these simple mind shifts. As you'll see with Fred's examples, the rest will follow. With all of that said, let's get started.
Well, thank you so much, Tina and Barbara. It's an honor to be with you today. This is really exciting work, LiveBinder and making it make sense for those who get to utilize the LiveBinders. Well, I'm a coordinator in educational services here at San Joaquin County Office of Education. I'm a former educator and a instructional coach and administrator for a school district in Stockton, California. But I moved on to the County Office of Education, where I've been able to specialize in work that supports the goals of school districts throughout our area here. So it's a great place to land so that I can, share some resources with my fellow educators.
Is it the Department of Continuous Improvement and Support?
Yes, it is. It's a department. It's a relatively new department. It's about 2 years old now, and we are what we're called the differentiated assistance arm of the county office, where we work with schools that have an improvement model that they're working on, and we work side by side to support their goals and initiatives that are, affect their ability to grow and to meet their the educational needs of their students that they serve.
Yeah, I like the title. It's not something that you would normally see, and it seems like you guys are focused on continually getting better and better and supporting. you know,
Yeah,
your
that's
teachers and your parents, right, and your families.
sure. Yeah, it takes the whole community together to make all this work. So it's um, you know, the 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 connecting points never, it's like a full array of of entities that we need to be sure that we're connecting with, so that everyone knows what everyone's doing.
Well, I have definitely, and I know Barbara, and Barbara's, you want to say hello? I forgot to, Barbara's in the room,
Yeah,
everybody. You can hear
I'm
her
here
voice.
too.
And
Yes.
she's there. I,
Great.
you tell it, you, at our certified trainers meetings, you're always engaging us with, parent feedback, family feedback, teacher feedback. And so it really gives us a great perspective on, how people need to get information. And you seem to be doing a lot of that, especially around the UDL toolkit. But you've done professional development, so you do that for school districts, right?
Yes, I do. That's probably one of the main parts of my important part of the position I hold here. One of the great things about my position here is that I get to wear a lot of hats. And some people would say, oh my God, you wear so many hats. You head up family and community engagement, or you're working with positive behavior interventions and support, which is the acronym PBIS, or you're a lead for multi-tiered systems of support, which is the acronyms MTSS. I mean, I wear a lot of hats, and at times to some people it might seem like, wow, there's so many things you focus on, but it lets me see a bigger picture, having the experiences that I have, because I not only work with families or help school districts connect with families, but I have a history of working with English language learners, so I can bring that perspective into my trainings. And special ed, I work with school districts to support teachers and students in their schools around the student study teams, which is another acronym, SST. And really, what's so cool about going back to MTSS, the multi-tier systems of support, that is probably where I started to see where everything was organized within this framework, because the MTSS is a framework.
The framework of UDL, do you mean?
Well, UDL resides in the framework. So you have, the whole idea around MTSS is addressing the needs of all students, behaviorally, well, of course, academically, behaviorally, and social emotional. So all those three parts encompass the child, and we really stress the fact that all students get access, not just the core part of the pyramid. Many people look at a pyramid and say, well, there's a 80% at the foundational part, and then there's 15 that are going to need support, 15%, and then 5 are going to need intensive support. But the model for MTSS is to be sure that we're looking at our systems and to be sure that we're addressing the needs of all students. And MTSS is the perfect way for people to see that RTI, which is response to intervention, and PBIS, as I mentioned earlier, are all part of how we make this thing make sense. And universal design for learning is the instructional piece. This is how we're going to make a change in our classrooms with teachers and parents and students.
Well, let's, so that's a perfect segue. I've got this, I want to explain what UDL is, although it may be a very common term now. You introduced it to me a couple of years ago with your UDL Toolkit binder.
Mm-hmm.
I want to define it a little bit for our audience, and it's a fascinating history, and I think it makes perfect sense. So I found a couple of websites. This one is ocali.org. You speak to it better than I do if you want to talk about, where this idea came from.
Right.
With Ron Mason
Right.
being an architect, actually.
Right. Well, as I became more engrossed in MTSS but I needed to know more about universal design for learning because we were mentioning in our trainings, but not going into specific details of what UDL really is. So in my research over the last few years, I really wanted, I found out that the term UDL is really was grandfathered or it was, originated with Ron Mace, who was disabled himself and also an architect. And he would design products and environments for people with disabilities. So maybe physical disabilities. Just to mention that, when we think about um, a ramp to get that's maybe next to stairs, and we think about the ramp as a way to get into a building, we can thank Ron Mace for this because that gave access to individuals that maybe were on a wheelchair or maybe they were in a walker and they couldn't take steps. But soon people figured out, hey, this is great for the UPS driver who has a dolly he's pushing, or the mom with the babies in the stroller. And or somebody has their just has some mobility issues, and these, so we call these things universal access because it's a way for everyone to have access, even though it was intended to be sure that those with those mobility issues just would be able to
get the same access as somebody who can go up the stairs and open the door, which was really, so the real brilliance to me behind that is the fact that they took the time to go back and look at studies about who was using it. Like they actually went back and reflected on this design and realized, hey, there's a lot more people using this, and what does that mean? And so somebody took that idea then and kind of applied it to education.
Right. Yeah. The CAST, which is the Center for Applied Special Technology in the 80s. You can see on your screen here, it was founded in 1984. They are the mothership for us. And the research around universal design for learning, the framework, the guidelines, all of the research around the different 3 networks of the brain that the affective network recognition and strategic networks. This was all their research that they did. And little by little, it has made its way into mainstream education, so this is an exciting time because we want to be sure that all kids have access and that we're not limiting access just because a student may not be able to read at grade level, or they may not have the same learning style as another student. So we're really looking at ways so how can we get to the same learning goal without saying there's only one way to do this. We'll give multiple ways to get to the learning goal itself.
Right, and I think I'll share this link on the podcast page, but the myths page of the Ocali website kind of spells it out for all the arguments about what UDL is or isn't. It's really to get your mind around it. It's really thinking about when you approach your classroom, you have the right framework to say, is everybody getting the ideas, getting the instruction that you need, not whether the instruction is right or not. It has nothing to do with the instruction itself. It's the access to that instruction. Like,
it's a big shift for many educators, especially those who've been in the in education for a while, because a lot of times we reflect back upon our own learning experiences as students, and I've experienced this where it was one way, and this is the lesson, this is how I teach it, I'm gonna tell you what you do this activity and you're done, and you either pass or fail pretty much. And now we're asking teachers to really look at knowing their students, which is number one, really knowing who their students are, how they learn best, and really making that connection so that there are multiple choices or opportunities for students to actually achieve the learning that is based around the learning goal itself. So
Yeah.
a lot of the mindset we're trying to present is that that variability factor, that every learner is unique, and that this myth of average, that we're always looking at the average, doesn't work. We want every student to be able to be successful, and so if we're always teaching to the average, we're missing then a big part of our population. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just seems like such a huge shift in the way learning has been done. Does it fight at all with the whole trying to teach to standards?
No, I don't think it fights with standards, because every lesson that you do design with universal design in mind, is standards. It's based on a standard. So, that's stressed in all the professional development we do, that it's always standards. We're always addressing the standard. It's getting to the standard is the shift.
The
from
roadblock.
yeah, it can be a roadblock, or what we call a barrier. And barriers are often a discussion with teachers, because they and I won't say just teachers, but in the field, there are barriers that get thrown up, because it's easier to throw up a barrier than to actually sometimes do the work. So,
Yeah, that's definitely true.
yeah, there's so many tools that teachers can use. Teach text to speech, recordings, pictures, videos, visuals, realia, having the real object, to be able to touch and hold, really to help create meaning for kids. It's thinking more broadly, I guess, as to what might appeal to one may not appeal to another. Some kids need to have lessons modeled specifically on how do I make a choice, and what happens when I make the wrong choice. Is it okay to make a new choice? And we want them to feel that they have some autonomy there, that they can make those decisions and grow as expert learners, because the whole goal of UDL is to create expert learners. And unless we give students the tools to do that, we're not teaching UDL.
We did a conference in Long Beach in July, and it was called UDL Guidelines, a 3-hour tour. Okay, what does everybody think of when you hear 3-hour tour? Right? Very, very interesting. So why don't you go ahead and explain what happened there? Why Gilligans Island?
Well, yeah, it was really fun. When we were asked to present at the MTSS PLI stands for Professional Learning Institute in Long Beach. I was asked to co-facilitate with James McKenna, who's a UDL expert from LA County Office of Education. So he and I have had opportunities to collaborate throughout the year, but this was our first time to plan together. But when I was asked to be a co-presenter, they said, can you come up with something kind of catchy? How we're going to have a number of pre-conference sessions, and how would you sell this, to your audience? Why would people want to come? And immediately I said, well, if we're talking about guidelines, why don't we become guides instead of presenters? Why don't we get into character here and really make this a little more engaging, a little more fun? So if you can have fun while you learn, isn't that going to be something you remember rather than just being talked to about slides and you could do this and you could do that. So James and I came up with the Gilligans Island because we thought, well, the 3-hour tour, it's cemented in our minds, you know, about that day that they took off from Hawaii and got marooned on an island somewhere, right? So I thought, well, you know, we've got 3 principles of UDL, which are engagement, representation, and action and expression. Why don't we call those the islands of each of those principles? So that made me think that how could we incorporate that in the training? And one program that I have been using in some of my trainings is called ThingLink. And so I worked with our
I'm going to open up your binder here so I can show
Sure.
everyone
Yeah.
what we're talking about here. This is the binder that kind of got Fred on the UDL tour, I guess.
Right.
You're just starting to get out there and sharing it.
Right.
And I've got here one of your thing links here. And if I use our binder to search for it, you've got it under new resources.
Right.
And I'm going to scroll down, and you've got the Padlet is, we're going to talk about that later because this is how you kind of organized it. But these are the different thing links.
Right.
So here is an island of engagement, and each one has a hotspot. So this is what thing links let you do. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was so much fun. Of course, you'll see the LiveBinder link at the bottom right-hand corner, and tried to make sense of the icons that I had available to me so that that when the participants in the training they had an hour to explore the 3 principles. And so we had a Google Doc, because Google embeds beautifully into, Google Forms embed beautifully into ThingLink. And of course, ThingLink embeds beautifully into LiveBinder. So it was a perfect way to present from the Padlet. And the Padlet, of course, showcases beautifully within the LiveBinder itself. So we gave participants an hour to explore the 3 principles, and some chose to stay into one area. They just wanted to be in engagement because they know that's usually the hook, you know, to get kids motivated is you have to engage them, you know. So a lot of people, some of the group decided, well, we're just going to stay here, but since we have these resources, we can go back and we can review the others and look at the hotspots, as you mentioned, that are linked to the image. So I think people had fun with that because it was different than just being so clinical, you know, and
Charts and graphs, right?
Yeah, it sounds so much more interactive.
It does, you know, and try to keep things as consistent as I could between the 3 different islands, because I thought, well, you know, if I can keep the same format going, then you know, people say, well, okay, that's where they have the video, which I really like, so I'm going to watch that video in the other thing link, and I just know how to navigate. So I think the navigation is so important, so people don't have to labor to say, well, I don't remember how you got there, you know. So trying to make it be sensible, I guess I could say, that, you know, if it was me on the other end looking at this is what I would need as a learner, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's the exact practice, right?
Uh-huh.
You know, all of the knowledge is all there. Like if I just go to this thing link, I'm going to get the same resources as I would from Padlet, you know, or just going directly to it, you know, from the binder or how, whatever it is that you're sharing. So it's like you said, everybody had a different perspective based on that time of day, maybe, or, you know, whatever they're doing. And so it was kind of a study for you guys too.
Oh, it was. And you know, the way this is designed here is that, of course, the principle of engagement becomes island engagement, but the guidelines themselves recruiting interests, self-regulation, and persistence. So to make that a little more engaging, we gave it names like the Bay of Self-Regulation or the Cove for Sustaining, and the recruiting interest landing. It was just so much fun. I mean, I enjoyed putting this together, and the reaction we got, which we can talk about a little bit later, from the audience was great. We had a full house, and we had 180 folks in the audience, and they, you know, the feedback was great. You know, they love to be able to look at things in a different manner. And I think I may not have mentioned, but James and I actually got into character. I was the skipper and James was Gilligan, and we just both hammed it up. Anyway, it was a fun experience, and you know, and in the work we do here in and throughout the county offices in California of education, you know, we are really looking at ways to work smarter than and to share resources with each other. So you know, it's not like these are mine, these are ours, and these resources. And the idea of creating this binder was that I wanted everyone to have access to it, because there are things in here that you might be able to use to motivate your own audience. So that was part of the reason why I wanted to do a public binder, because I wanted access for all, really.
Yeah, really gaining in views here, and you know, you've already gone off and done presentations to a wider audience in person.
Right. I mean, I get my ideas in looking at other live binders that others have done throughout the actually internationally, and it's just we need to work. We need to work smarter, and we need to know that we all have some great tools out there, and just to try and incorporate them in our time together is really important.
So in your own professional development, how have you changed knowing about the 3 guidelines for universal design?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, one of my colleagues here at the county office and I had a conversation of, well, it's been almost 2 years ago, but we were talking about how can we engage our audiences and how do we keep the momentum going? And I said, you know, we need to think UDL. We need to think in that manner. We need to create interactive experiences, give our participants choice, you know, put ourselves where they're sitting and think about what would it be like for me to have to sit here and listen to this, or to engage in this content, or different ways that that might be appealing that I never really would have thought about. And so we really decided to look at choice in the trainings, and really to be mindful of the fact that it is difficult for teachers or administrators to sit still for a long period of time, that we need to be cognizant of modalities to be sure that people have opportunities to kind of re-energize, you know, when they're in a training, just to get the blood flow going.
Yeah.
And so, you know, some movement is really important, and just to start to think about the fact that if teachers don't have a chance to, or participants don't have a chance to regurgitate what you've been exploring, then it isn't very meaningful for them, right? So you know, that has been a way I've been thinking about how I lead professional development or develop it, as to giving choice within the training itself. I could give you like a little example of one that's really simple that I tried, and it was actually a UDL lesson planning session. And often, you like to check in with the group, and you like to see how they're doing, and sometimes we call that shares and celebrations. It's just a moment to check in with one another on how they're doing today, or what's going on. And so I thought about this before my training. Actually, I came up with the idea. I said, well, I think I'll put poster paper on all the tables and have ask the question, pose the question, and ask people, or give the participants an opportunity to express themselves any way they'd want. So they could draw a picture, they could write the lyrics to maybe a song, a verse to a poem, a quote, a rap, whatever it was that, that might help them express where they were at that time, and or if they preferred to turn to a partner at the table and just have a conversation about, this is what's going on with me today, or what's been happening to me. So I opened up a number of different ways for the audience just to engage with a simple topic. How's your day going? Or what's going on with you? Or checking in. And it was fun to watch. It was fun to watch them. I said, that was my test, to see if just to put choice into a simple activity could engage the audience. So that was one little shift that I made in my own delivering of PD, that I think is something I've got to keep that in mind when I plan future trainings.
Yeah. So you practiced a little bit of what you're trying to encourage people to do, which is, think about choice.
Right.
How do I give my audience choice? And it's interesting because it kind of ties in with about, really thinking about the audience. Give all this information to people, but really being cognizant of, clarity, context, engagement. It makes a huge difference.
Right. Yeah, I think it does. Another tool that I have been using, or a technique I've been using for time management, has been a technique called the Pomodoro Technique. And that's also in our, the LiveBinder that I developed, created. And I learned this from a training a couple of years ago I went to, where you tell the audience, in advance, you say, I'm going to be presenting to you for 25 minutes approximately, and we're gonna talk about, whatever the learning is centered around, or the objective for the training is. And then the timer will go off, or I'll have a silent timer, and then you get 5 minutes to yourself. So you can use that 5 minutes to talk at your table. You can use the 5 minutes to check your text messages, your Facebook, whatever it is that is often a distraction. Because what I find, if participants have to sit for 2.5 hours before they get a 15-minute break, you're going to lose them somewhere along the line. And so having this organizational time management tool has really been helpful for some of my latest trainings I'm doing. In fact, when I have a group that comes back to me, and because we're doing a series of trainings together, I'll mention the Pomodoro Technique. I said, would you like to continue and do the Pomodoro again? I get the thumbs up. They like that, and they're more engaged than they would be if they had to sit for
Not knowing.
Yeah, that sounds fabulous. What a great way to keep people focused on the content.
And you can use this in your everyday tasks that you do. You might be a great tool for kids at doing homework, so that they you get so exhausted, continuously working without taking a break. So it's not just for PD, obviously, or professional development. I mean, you could figure this in your daily life.
It's a life skill. This is great.
And they say about after 3 or 4 25-minute sessions, then you need to give yourself a longer break. I mean, you don't go all day this way, but you know, it works out well because usually after, you know, 3 or so or 4 with the trainings I do, then we're going to take our early lunch break, or, you know, they'll have some time and then they come back and we repeat it again until it's time to go home. But I so far can say, wow, that's a tool we need to think about using, and an easy one to implement. So a lot of good resources here in the LiveBinder about the Pomodoro. There's even a blog that and they're international. You know, the Pomodoro idea came around because of the Pomodoro, I believe, means tomato in Italian. So, and it was a timer shaped in like
A tomato.
Yeah, kitchen timers set like a tomato. So that's kind of where that all kind of came about. But when I see things that appeal to me when I'm in a training, I'm thinking I could do that too. And the audience is usually really flexible. If I say, hey, we're at break time, if you could give me 5 more minutes, that would it'd be a perfect way to transition, you know, to a break. And they're very open to doing that because they know they're going to get their 5 minutes, but they realize that just cutting something off may not be a good idea, right? It may not transition well. So when I'm developing my presentations, I try to think of them being in chunks of time that will open up some new discussion, which I want, because I don't want to be the one that's the only person talking, but I want the audience to be engaged in the conversation. So that may push things out a little bit. So you just manage it around the time that you have together, and it all seems to work out, I feel. So
Yeah.
So those
we're
are
good.
cool tips. Yeah.
Yeah. So awesome material. I learned something new, and I know Barbara does too.
Yeah, it's just great stuff.
And when I mentioned before how I always learn something from your binders. Are there any tips that you could share with us? You know, as you're approaching, just talking about binders right now, and I know we've talked about UDL, but I do love what you've done. I like the background on this, matching the tabs there, and then how you design your tabs and kind of thinking about what process your audience goes through. What are some tips you can share?
Yeah, great question. And I was thinking back, gosh, 5 years I've been working with you all, and that is just the best, because I just feel like you guys are just the best support, and I've learned so much from you, and I love being a certified trainer and taking my what I've learned and sharing it with others. But I think some of the tips that I have, of course, in the very beginning when I started using LiveBinder, I thought, well, this is great because this replaces that clunky binder that we give students. I teach at the college level too, and you have these handouts, and it just ends up going on a shelf somewhere, and collects dust. And so my attraction to the LiveBinder was that it just has so many ways to make content so accessible. But I also think about my background. I have a background in art, and I really am into aesthetics and color and all that. So when I think of design, I think about, well, I want to be sure that it's attractive. I want to be sure that it's something people will want to go to. Some binders are, and I did this myself in the very beginning, I wasn't really thinking about maybe color coordination or organizing colors to match the intention. And I've gotten a little, I've seen different ways of being sure that I address color importantly. For example, I did a LiveBinder for a school district for parent, it's called the Parent Ambassador Program. And so some of the content needed to be translated into Spanish. And so what I did with that was the audience, the Spanish speakers that were in the audience I think it's called the sample. There you go. And I may not have done it exactly on this binder, but the one that I made specifically for them, anytime I had something that was translatable into, say, Spanish, then I made the tab green so that my audience knew, oh, I can get the translation of that very quickly. So this binder itself, I may not have done this on the sample, but I did it for them because I knew I had an audience, right?
Let's see if we can find it.
But anyway, so color, using color intentionally can be really helpful. And then I think the organization, trying to build upon, what is it that you want people to know? It's like making an outline, right? And you want the topic, but then you want those subtopics to fit in there nicely so that they look like it should be very intentional, right? And if we keep that in mind, that can be really, really helpful. Another thing that I've been working on is to personalize the binder a little bit more. In the UDL binder, the welcome page has a picture of me now, and I thought, well, you know what? Why not? I have a Twitter. I have my email at the County Office of Ed. I am a certified trainer for LiveBinder. Why not give people a little more of a human connection here rather than just being a resource to go to? So I thought, well, if I maybe add some features to it that and also welcoming people to comment, that would be a great way for me to build upon what I have and make it more relevant for people. The one I just came up with yesterday was a thought about one application I have started using. Is called Flipgrid, and that is a great way to make these little 60-second videos that you can embed into the binder, which I am planning to do. And I want to put those in maybe right instead of putting the content in, just when you click the tab, you get that particular document or whatever, but putting one of my Flipgrids in, embed that into the content so that, hey, here's an idea, think about this, or don't forget to look at the second paragraph, because this is going to be the big deal here that you should know about. I thought, well, why not add voice?
Yeah.
So that's my next project, and I'm hopeful that I'm going to be selected to present this at a summit in April. And if I do, this is going to be one of the things that's going to drive my work, is to really make this as user-friendly as possible and give folks access by adding voice for those that may have some challenges with access, or doing some more text-to-speech within the binder itself. So I think those are the things I keep I think of. I mean, I guess I'm a UDL guy now. So that's dangerous, I guess, for me. But really, that's what keeps me.
You want everyone to head to your binders, no limitations, right?
Yeah, I want people to come back and say, "Hey, I like that. That's a useful tool." And I will say that here at our county office, the binders are the main way that we share resources throughout the county office here. So some of them are private binders, some of them are public binders, but folks here love it because it is it's easily accessible, and it is and I'm just excited now because my secretary is going to be able to upload things for me when I'm not here, because before they say, okay, we got to give all this stuff to Fred because Fred has to upload these things. And not that I don't mind doing it, but it's great to have a collaborator. So it's really important to have a collaborator that you can work with that supports the work.
Yeah.
Because then you want to be sure the binders are up to date, and that you don't run into the 404 error code. That's something
Right.
and I know that some of the binders that I developed, you said I developed quite a few. It takes time to do that, but if you really want the binder to be useful, you don't want people to have a barrier by saying, oh, I can't get to that because it won't, that content's too old, or it hasn't been updated, or whatever. So I think being cognizant of the fact that you want things to be live, it is a live binder, right? So
Yeah,
you want things to be live, and just like a hot link, if it's not there, you're not going to have access to it.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, we got the certified trainer badge for you too, specifically.
Oh.
So I'll send that to you. It'll look official.
Well, and it is fun, and I was we have our annual tech summit here every September, and so I've been on the committee for the last 4 years, and we've had situations where we've had a presenter for a session call in sick, or something happened and they couldn't make it. So they asked me the last minute, maybe a day or so before the event, would I do a session on LiveBinder, which I did, and the audience that was going to go to this training that got canceled, most of them came to mine, and it was fun to be able to share, what I've been doing with LiveBinder, and a lot of people in the audience just didn't know about it. So it's fun. My job is it's always fun to share. That's what I love about my position here. So
well, great. We love being part of that end.
Yeah, so we love showcasing your binders too on our homepage.
Yeah.
We are moving ahead here in California. I've been part of the UDL County Office Network for the last year and a half or so. So I was one of kind of the founding team members of it. And now we have, the momentum is there, and we are now applying to become the next coalition in California. So it'd be called the California UDL Coalition. So similar to coalitions like PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention Support.
Yeah.
That's an example of a coalition, but we are going full throttle, and I'm on the steering committee with the state, and I'm so honored to be with, like James, who I presented with in Long Beach, but being with the experts, because that's what fuels your enthusiasm, is when you are collaborating with one another, and you're not working in silos. So I'm thrilled that UDL is going to be a common word, a common acronym, I should say, that and that's the goal, that we're sure that we're addressing the needs of all kids, and UDL's the way to do it.
Yeah, it's great.
Super exciting.
So I'm really looking forward to working with our certified trainers and sharing at our next meetings. And it's so nice that we meet monthly and can share ideas. We have so many experts out there that are doing so much valuable work that so anyway, I want to thank you, Tina and Barbara, for the support you offer, because I've grown just with my association with you both, and it's really helped me to grow as a learner myself.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you. Thank you for today. Out of your busy schedule, so we appreciate it.
Yeah, that was wonderful.